And I remember one night I was there at like 2 or 3 a.m. working on something. And I remember Bob called me. He's like, why are you still in the office? I'm like, well, I'm trying to get this in a credit agreement done or whatever it was, some financing. And he said to me, he's like, Luke, character is forged in crisis. And that stuck with me. Like, Carl, people say things. And it's just for like in these adverse times, you can learn the most about yourself and you can learn where your limit is. And if that's what really is what I'm trying to do, it's like, where is my limit? What can I really achieve? Where's my personal PB in life? That's he sort of characters forged in Christ. I'm like, I'm gonna work this out. I'm gonna prove to you. I'm gonna prove to you what I can do. And that's probably like, I'm gonna prove to myself I can do this. And I think that's what we all do. We set objectives in life. I'm gonna prove to yourself of what you can do. Like there was this moment on a conference call that I can still remember it. And I still remember that moment. Like, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you that I can work this out. And it was like, there were so many difficulties in that period of everyone's financial life and businesses. And this was mine. And it was like, I'm gonna work on this. I'm gonna work it out.
Welcome to another episode of the Matthews Mentality Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Matthews, and today I'm joined by a dynamic leader. You could tell Luke sent this to us because he self-describes dynamic leader.
I didn't.
Dynamic
you
leader.
It up a little bit.
Oh, you did? I was like,
thank you.
A dynamic leader whose career
mine was
spans global real estate, corporate leadership, and social impact. Luke Petherbridge. Luke is the CEO of Logistics, where he drives strategy, profitability, customer outcomes, and culture. With over 20 years of experience, he's held top roles at Shopcore Properties, LivCor, and DDR Corporation, overseeing billions in transactions across Europe, US, and Asia. He's also the co-founder and chairman of CoreGiving, a nonprofit fighting childhood hunger that's provided over 66 million meals worldwide. Originally from Australia, Luke now lives in the United States with his wife, Chantel, and their 3 kids. When he's not leading at the highest level, he's at the beach, on the slopes. And this is how Luke and I became such close friends. We commiserate together as die hard, it says, watching the Cleveland Browns. Go Browns. This is our year.
Go Browns. This is how I've heard that one before.
Today, we're diving into his journey from leading real estate giants to building meaningful impact at scale. But before we get started, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with anyone who benefit from today's conversation. Luke, welcome to the Matthews Mentality Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm happy we finally made it happen.
Yeah. Busy schedules, but it's great. I love being here. I love Nashville. It's a great spot. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you. It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
The audience will know this now. Maybe a decade ago, Luke and I, as young competitive guys coming up in the industry, we made a bet who could build a bigger company. You remember, and we measured it by number of employees.
Yeah, I know. It's such a silly way to do it.
No, of course, but like, how else you can measure? So we would screenshot. Like, I would pull the LinkedIn. It said Matthews, 232 people, and then you'd screenshot just bought a big company. It was jumped at 400. I was like, fuck,
God dang it. It was an interesting way for us to measure ourselves, but it shows the competitive spirit, I think, right?
Tell the audience, tell us about Link. How big is it? How many people? But just talk to us about the company and what keeps you busy today.
Yeah. So Link, we're the largest private owner of US industrial real estate. We really focused on last mile infill product. We now have a little over 500 million feet. So huge company. We are Blackstone's US real estate company or US industrial company. The better way to think of our business is 500 million feet. We have 9,000 businesses operating inside our portfolio.
How many properties is that?
3,500 properties. We have 1,100 people.
1,100?
1,100 around the country.
What's our last count, guys? Are we 1050?
Damn it! I just keep moving firms to be ahead. But it's been it's a really great business. I mean, industrial is one of those things. If you went and toured the real estate, I mean, we first got to know each other around retail. And there's this fabric or dynamism around being the town center. When you go to an industrial building, like the building itself, every industrial building, like here in Nashville or in Chicago, they're very similar. What's magical about it is you go inside these buildings, it is the heartbeat of America. Like whether it's someone building something, shipping something, creating something, innovating, building drones, building rocket ships, it's everything that happens in this country happens inside a warehouse at some point. And I'm very, very fortunate to be part of that firm.
One of the things I found so fascinating about your career, having a, kind of a front row seat to it for so long, and because you're talking about what's unique about industrial, but you've run a large retail platform, then a large multifamily platform, ShopCore, then LivCor, then industrial. And I kind of grew up with this belief system in real estate that you really have to be a specialist because every product type is so different and so unique. And it's really hard to pivot between, and every now and then you see it, but there's so much, kind of inherent knowledge and relationship capital that you kind of leave behind when you go from one asset class to another. Yet you've done it very seamlessly and at a very high level. What, in your opinion, what does that say about real estate across all product types, or what have you learned in having time spent in three major food groups?
Do you know, I think there's a different, like if you're an acquisition person or a leasing person, you need to be a little more specialized. I'd say real estate's more similar than it is different. If you really think about it, we're leasing space to a customer, and every asset class is a little different. So if I think of retail, it's very customer-centric. Not only do you care about your customer, the retailer, you care about your customer's customer, and it's very centered around that. In apartments, it's very much about managing at scale, using data to your advantage and providing residence experience. And then industrial, it's working with it. So you're using some of the elements like the customer centricity. We're weaving that into Link. The data centricity that multifamily has operated on for years, we're weaving that into Link. So I'd say the real estate spectrum is a lot more similar. It's just others. So some of them, like hotels, they've indexed more into resident or customer experience than, say, an office building. What happened over the last, walk in your office, like the experience as you walk into an office building is so different today than what it was 30 years ago. So I think there's a lot more overlap there. So I found it, and the other thing is, the thing that makes all these firms the same, they have great people working with great customers that build and forge great relationships. I think that can be moved across asset classes more seamlessly. Yeah, it's just, think of your business. You're dealing with all these people. You could work in an industrial building. You could go work on a retail sale. You could work on a lease for an office building. Like, it's the core competencies and capabilities you're looking for in your team is probably not wildly dissimilar to what I need. And it's just, retooling that a bit.
High level, I know you're not a financial advisor, but you know enough about real estate to give a little bit of advice. If someone's listening and they aspire to be a real estate investor, just a high level, what have you learned if someone's looking at a building, whether it's their first purchase, it's a little $1 million building, or buying $100 million assets like you have and continue to do? What have you found to be the best drivers of long-term value where you look back and say, I'm glad I bought that piece of real estate?
I think there's two main things. One is pick a sector, or as John Gray talks about, good neighborhood. If you can invest in good neighborhoods, a lot of pieces fit together. So my thing would be the old adage, location, location, location. Whether it's office, retail, industrial, if you own something in a good spot in a growing demographic that supports your customer or use, it works. And it doesn't mean it works all the time, but you have a better chance of succeeding there. And then I'd say pick secular tailwinds that seem to have macro, long-term or longevity. So own, like for our business, industrial, if you can own infill, we think proximity to the end user, whether it's you're a HVAC provider, you need to be close to the houses, whether you're shipping something, whether you're close to workers. Infill industrial, I think, is for us an area we've been sort of deploying capital around, and we invest around. We believe in the secular tailwind of e-commerce growing, onshoring and nearshoring of manufacturing, consumption growth in markets like Nashville is a great and a hot market at the moment. And it's almost like what would change my view of that? We talked at breakfast this morning, like demographics, like my 18-year-old and my 16-year-old, they're going to buy more online in their 30s than you and I did. So the e-commerce secular trend is probably there.
And that's the tailwind you speak
that's
of.
one of the, but that's a decade tailwind. Onshoring and nearshoring, reorientation of supply chains, which, by the way, has been happening for 5 or 6 years. It's not a recent phenomenon. Whether it's chip manufacturing that's happening in Phoenix, the spill over there, Tesla in Austin building EVs there, spill over there. So then you're like, okay, I feel good about that. I'm going to invest around that and invest around sort of these longer term tailwinds. And then it's find your niche. But the niche thing is like, it's very building specific. If you can get around these macro good neighborhood trends, I think you have a better chance of success. That's what I'd be betting on.
So that advice, a lot of it, if I had to guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, born from experience and the experience you've had over the last 25 years in real estate, starting in Australia, and then you came to the States as part of, was it DDR, the Macquarie?
So we sold that JV, and then I had a call from Dan Hurwitz and David and said, hey, would you think of, I'd been to Cleveland a lot and said, would you move to Cleveland? I had 2 little kids.
And they said the weather is just like just like Sydney.
They brought me over. Funnily enough, Chantal and I came over in September.
Oh, the best.
Yeah, exactly.
The best.
We toured like that down Som Center Road on the east side. I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
We moved in December, less amazing. I knew what I was getting to. I love Cleveland. I'm a huge Cleveland fan.
I remember in college recruiting, and they probably still do this, Michigan, Ohio State, they would bring the Cali kids out early in the season for their official visit. Like you'd go out in September. Sometimes even over the summer, you go out, they'd like, hey, we want you at a game. And like, we have this game in September, you should go. USC, it was the whole year. It's like, oh, come out in December.
You still
Every now and then they couldn't arrange it with the Cali kids. They'd go out to visit, Michigan in November for the big game. And like, they just couldn't sign them because the weather was so different. But so that's how DDR got you to the States.
Yeah. And I'd been there. I knew the firm. So what got me there was what kept me there is the people, the Midwest. And by the way, America at large, like, great people, big markets. But, and then look, it's not like I moved from Cleveland to Southern California. I moved to Chicago, another great Midwestern city, big city, great people. Like it's one of the lessons. I mean, I remember sitting around the table when I was a kid, and my parents met on the Berlin Wall. 2 Australians met on the Berlin Wall.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah, they lived overseas. They lived in London for a while, or Europe. They lived in Indonesia. They moved home when I was born. But all around my kitchen table, they just talked about being global, like travel, explore the world.
Experiential.
Just go live around the world. And my wife, Chantal, she did a gap year and lived in the UK and Ireland for a year. I went straight to college, straight to work. And this was an opportunity. Like
you took a gap year where you just didn't do anything.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. I'm waiting for my gap year. But then I sort of, like, the opportunity came. I'm like, you know what? We'll give it a go. And like, life's about experiences. And a philosophy I live by is just be open to yes. You don't have to say yes, but just don't say no before you explore it. Like, sure, why not? We'll do it.
So let's take a little step back in time. You're born in Australia.
Yeah. I didn't make up the accent. It's real. Well, it's authentic.
Yeah.
It's changed. It's probably changed since I've known you too.
No, you see, this is I tell everyone, I said, Luke, like hard worker, smart guy, but like it's the accent. That's what you and I could say the same thing. And if I say it, they're like, okay. But if you say it, it's like, oh yeah, I mean,
please don't share my secret. That's
so born and raised in Australia. What'd your parents do?
Dad was an accountant, built his own accounting firm. So I was around that all my life. My mum was a nurse. She used to work when I was a kid, worked night duty. So she was around during the week. But then when I'm the oldest of 3, when we all got to school, Mum started working for Dad's firm. So was the office manager.
I love to ask this question of people sitting in the chair you're in, and I'm fascinated by the answers because they range. But I know you, and our industry knows you as a very hard worker, very intelligent, and all these driven guy. But were you always like that even as a kid? Like, were your parents like, oh, we always knew Luke was gonna, do all these things?
Do you know, so academically, no. I think I was probably an okay student. I mean, I liked school. I liked playing rugby as a kid, playing sport with my friends. I was competitive. I didn't like to lose. I'm not saying I love to win. I just hated losing.
Yeah.
I think all my life when I played sport. But I wasn't a super driven academic student, whether it was at school or even at college. It wasn't until my second or third job, when I started working for really driven people, and there was cause and effect. You work really hard, you get promoted, you earn more money, it provides, and then that flywheel really happened. But I wouldn't have said, I think my parents would have said he was super competitive as an athlete, and not that I was a great athlete. I was pretty mediocre at sport. but I didn't like to lose.
Yeah, there's been this common theme, not just in high achievers that I've had the privilege to get to know, but you just see, the Michael Jordans or the Kobes. It wasn't so much that they loved winning. Winning was almost a relief. It's just they hated losing so much.
I've never been associated with Michael Jordan or Kobe.
Yeah. There you go.
I didn't like to lose.
Yeah.
And again, I wasn't like on the first 15. I played second 15. But I played a lot of sport. All my friends did. And even now, I really don't like to lose. I just don't like that feeling. And look, that doesn't mean you win all the time. I've lost a lot. But the things if you ask me to think of rugby's memories, I remember the ones where we got beaten pretty badly, not the ones where we beat at the last minute. Like that's not the ones I remember.
Messed up, huh?
Well, it's what sticks with me. But I've always, that's sort of been it. But I wouldn't have said my parents were like, Luke is this type A, uber driven, does his best at everything. I sort of enjoyed school, and I have great fond memories of where I grew up. I have great friends, like lifelong friends. High school are my best friends in life.
And so competitive in sports, not liking to lose, but your kind of ambition and your drive, that just, it kicked on when you went to a company.
Rubicon, yeah. I went.
Rubicon.
Yeah, so I went from high school straight to Macquarie University. And so I was one of those people, I think, looking back, if I took a gap year, I don't know if I would have gone back into structured college.
What do you think you would have done?
I don't know. It's really interesting, but I think my parents were probably sighed relief and said, look, yes, let's keep the education, get a degree.
Keep you on track.
Yeah, which was great. And I enjoyed college. And college in Australia is very different. You don't move away, you live at home. I worked at Bunnings, which is a Home Depot. I used to work at one of those stores on the weekend. So I drive a forklift around, and my friends were all like builders.
Are there pictures of that? How do I get these pictures?
Well, they didn't have phones with cameras, so there would be no pictures of that. But I used to work there. I'd consider myself a little handy. My friends are builders. Two of my best friends are builders. One's a commercial construction builder. One's a home builder. They would say he has no skills. I felt like I was pretty skilled compared to
They put you in the garden center?
Yeah, that's right. And then I went and worked at Rothschild, which was a big fund manager. I worked in a call center there to start with, and then started working on other things and working for like investor relations, and then went to Rubicon. Rubicon was like this baptism of fire. Like if I think of, some people want to do MBAs, this was kind of like my MBA moment.
Living MBA. Yeah.
I was 23. Rubicon was this small firm founded by a Rhodes Scholar. He was the youngest CEO of JP Morgan in Australia, and we had 3 little hedge funds, and it had probably 30 million, 40 million of assets under management. And in 5 years, it had 5 billion, like massive amount of growth.
What did you learn? What were they doing, or what did you kind of see them doing that allowed them to outperform the market so well? We started in an office that was probably 3 times the size of this booth. We all sat in corners. Gordon, who was the founder, I was the first real employee. Last name Gecko?
No. But he was in the corner, and then it was like 2 founders and me. And then, so I got to do everything. Collect the mail, get coffee, to underwrite investments, write prospectuses, raise capital. I got to do everything. And it was kind of this huge opportunity, but it was, Gordon, like what made them special? Like one, there was intellect. There's a lot of smart people. He was driven. He was that prototypical driven, like went to a great school, went to Sydney Uni, went to get a Rhodes Scholarship, youngest CEO of JP Morgan in Australia, or Chase,
just
whatever.
Locked in.
He was locked in. So working around, and if I was sort of like advising, anyway, but I think of advice, like whenever someone says, what advice would you give? I think, what would I tell Max or Lucy or Callum? Work around great people. Like if you think about all your life, like if you think of all the people that really influence you, they don't have to be your direct boss. It could be clients. Be around great people.
Yeah.
Gordon was just, he'd start emailing you at 4 a.m. and he'd finish at midnight.
Yeah.
And it's just, he was very driven, and we did so much. And normally when you, some of it's luck, like you make your own luck as well. But I joined and I got to do everything and then we got into real estate. We listed 3 companies, a US real estate company, a Japanese real estate company, and a European real estate company. So I wrote prospectuses. I worked with bankers. We, underwrote investments. I did capital hedging. I learned all and it's because we were this small business that got to flex at rapid speed.
You had to wear a lot of hats.
But you had to work. And there's there's a trade-off there. You know, I missed a lot of my friends' birthday parties. I'd come home at midnight on a Saturday, you know, pick up Chantel. Like Chantel and I are high school sweethearts, but you know, she would go to things and I'd meet her at home. Like there's a real trade-off to this, but you know, I probably didn't appreciate the lesson I was being taught at the time. Now I look back at it and say there's all these pieces of things I do now that I draw from that, and all through my career, honestly.
I mean, there's a couple of things I want to unpack, but you started with inspired. I've said on this podcast, like sometimes the company I keep in terms of how I measure my satisfaction with that is I always want to be the least motivated person in the room, because if I'm surrounded by more or intelligent or accomplished, whatever it is, then I'll be like, just the way I'm wired and the way and I think the way a lot of people are wired is like when you surround yourself with people who are driven at a level, you know, or achieved at a level, whatever it is, it just inspires you. You're like, I got to do more for whatever reason, you know, it's like, I got to do more.
I think that's right. And it just, it's probably, I mean, you're an actual athlete. It's like playing with great athletes. You want to play with better people, and what motivates you is like, what's my ceiling? Like, what can it's a personal thing. Like you say, how good am I really? And I want to test myself. And the only way you test yourself is be around better people that push you a little harder. And Gordon, it was like doing an MBA program. And I remember when I interviewed for the job, I had two opportunities. I had that one, and I had a job to work. So thinking of the path not traveled, to work for Coca-Cola. And it was like in the actuarial team, and they were just rolling out Coke Zero. And I think they were going to pay me like 10 grand a year more. And I remember going to my dad at the time. It was a weekend. I said, Dad, I think I'm going to take the Coke job. And I said, but here's why. So I did the work. I said, it's going to pay more. But they've got, and now every sort of pantry has a kitchen, but it had like free Coke. Like back in the early 2000s.
You'd be like diabetic at this point.
But it's all, or Gatorade or whatever. But it's like, there's all this free stuff. So I'm like, you know, I don't have to buy a drink at lunch and all. And I think my dad just sat there and I'm like, oh my God, Luke, what are you doing? So he rightfully convinced me. He's like, you know, maybe pick the.
Has he taken a victory lap? Like,
well, he passed away when I was 30, but he didn't. I don't think he ever, my dad would never take the victory lap. He'd say, it's your victory lap, even though, but his guiding hand of like, don't think for the little bit of money you're going to earn more now, or for God's sake, don't pick it for the fridge. Like, maybe find the person that's going to push you and teach you. And maybe he saw something in me that I didn't see at the time, but pushed me in that direction, which was, life-changing, like a life-changing.
I can only imagine. When you were at Rubicon and you were around these, you know, these killers, right? These super motivated, driven people, did they ever say like, hey, this is what you have to do because that's our expectations of you? Or was it just from a true inspiration, they're working, you know, early in the morning, late at night, weekends? You know, you touched on there's a lot that you have to, there's a trade-off, which is, you know, what we kind of, the work-life balance concept. Or were you just were so inspired that you're like, of course I'm going to do this. Of course I'm going to work these hours. Of course I'm going to trade my friends' birthdays because there's so much going on here that I'm benefiting and learning from.
I think some of it was I didn't like to fail. Like there was parts, and we can get to the MDT story, but I didn't want to fail. And so around someone that was super driven, I wanted to succeed. I wanted to deliver what he wanted or what the firm needed, or I wanted to get something done. So I think there was a part of that. I do remember some things like everything matters. I remember Gordon saying that, and whether it's a presentation, the way you show up, the way you meet someone, the font you use, the alignment on a PowerPoint deck.
You know why I'm smiling at them? Yesterday, I came out with this like, hey, I have this new concept. I think I'm going to roll it out as a workshop at Matthews, and I may make this kind of a bigger message for the industry through the socials is the 7 principles of success. And one of them says everything matters. Everything matters. The font, the grammar, the clothes. It's not just the big, everything matters. So see, there you go.
Everything matters.
Everything matters.
And it was, so, down to if you send an email, the most senior person's first, and then you put it in order. Like, Gordon was a stickler at these things, and it was just everything matters. And so that's saying, I remember putting a slide up at Shopcourt, a group saying just everything matters. Like it's the littlest things. They all just accumulate. Like, do people notice the font? I'm not sure, but over time, maybe they do. It's just like all these little things. Everything matters was the first one. The other one was, don't wait for tomorrow to do something today. Like, don't wait for tomorrow to do something right now today. And I still remember doing, like, we'd do these capital raisings, like IPOs, and you'd sit in a meeting room on a Friday with all the bankers and lawyers would come in and they'd say, okay, we'll get it to you on Monday. And I remember Gordon would look at me and say, Luke, the day after Fridays, I'm like, it's Saturday. He's like, great, we'll have it on Saturday. Thank you. And it's not so much that you should work 7 days a week. It's just don't wait. Things change super quickly. I mean, we're in a world that things move really fast. People are probably saying, God, I wish I did this thing a little faster. I wish I got that deal closed. I wish I got that financing closed. Just don't wait for tomorrow to do something. If you have, that's hustle and attention to detail. That was the two things. Then, like, if you have that, it's sort of, that's what drove the firm.
Yeah, we have saying at Matthews, it's like, see you at the office Saturday, or if Saturday's still a work day. It's like Saturday, you could work. There's actually not rules against it.
No, that's right.
It just depends on what you want your life to look like.
That's right. And I think there's sort of like, there's probably parts of me, maybe it was over-indexed that way, but you could say, well, would I have this career or this life or where I'm at or success? There's probably balance. And look, I think in any point in life, you sort of transition over balance and you go one way and then you come back. I think the lesson I probably should have heeded a bit more in my 20s, and I think it's wisdom, it's age, just be more self-aware to say, okay, do I really want to be doing this and be intentional? It could be, absolutely, I'm really into it. I'm going to focus on this for the next 8 months or whatever it is and do it, not just at the end say, oh, I wasn't being thoughtful. I think that has taken a little bit more time for me to be a bit more thoughtful about it and just be more self-aware of the decisions you're making.
Let's talk about that, because you had said, hey, there was a lot that I had to trade off working at Rubicon, and really, I know more than most as it relates to your career and how hard you've worked, but like the trade-offs, hey, I wasn't able to get to my friend's birthday party. What was the driver? At some point you were at the office and you're like, hey, are you going to Joe's birthday tonight? And dozens, hundreds of these decisions probably have come up in your life. And for a period of time, certainly in your 20s, the answer was like, no, I'm going to focus here. What was your motivation? Like, what was motivating you to sacrifice something that I'm sure you wanted to do?
Yeah.
Like, it's always fun to go to a friend's house. And
I think a lot of people would say it was, to earn money or whatever. Yeah. I think it was just don't fail. Like I look back at my time. Fear of failure. It's like, I'm going to make this successful. And so I went from Rubicon to Macquarie and I became the CEO of Macquarie DDR. So that was a joint venture. And I took that job 2 weeks before. I started 2 weeks before Lehman went bankrupt. So Macquarie was this, it's this awesome investment bank in Asia. Now it's in the US, but at the time it's like the Goldman Sachs of Australia, like to give it sort of, so I was like, this is where all financial people want to go to Macquarie. And this is my chance to run a REIT. It was a small REIT, it's a few $1 billion with a US exposure. Well, this would be awesome. And the role I went to was like, we're going to grow this thing to, we're now going to try to save it. It went into like financial distress, over-levered, like a lot of companies. We had a JV partner in DDR, which were great people in Cleveland. That'll get my Cleveland story. But I mean, I didn't build it. I stepped in and this thing started falling apart, like at rapid speed. I mean, we all remember, and that was a test of adversity. I remember talking to a friend who was a sell-side analyst, and they're like, why are you doing this? Why don't you just say, I didn't build it, not my problem, I'm going to move on? And I still distinctly remember this conversation. I'm like, I'm going to prove the sell side wrong that I can save this thing. And it was just, there was this, it wasn't, I mean, I didn't become lucratively wealthy doing this. I was, working out a business that I didn't create in the worst possible time. And look, was there times during that I questioned, I'm like, why am I doing this? Like I'm working crazy hours for a company that's like, it's sort of in massive distress. But, we eventually worked it out. We sold it. I mean, there was equity left. We didn't go bankrupt. We worked it out. And funnily enough, it sort of was another deal later on in my career. But it was really this opportunity, just like, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to prove to you I can do this. And it was more the fear of failure. I didn't want it to fail on my watch. Even though if it had failed, I think everyone's like, Luke, this was not your making. It wasn't your, but I'm like, I'm going to get this done. And I spent 3 or 4 years working out this REIT. 3 years working out this REIT in the worst possible time. And I remember a board member, we had an external board. The board member was the dean of Stanford Business. I mean, incredible board they selected for this. And I remember one night I was there at like 2 or 3 a.m. working on something. And I remember Bob called me. He's like, why are you still in the office? I'm like, well, I'm trying to get this in a credit agreement done or whatever it was, some financing. And he said to me, he's like, Luke, character is forged in crisis. And that stuck with me. Like, Carl, people say things. And it's just for like in these adverse times, you can learn the most about yourself and you can learn where your limit is. And if that's what really is what I'm trying to, it's like, where is my limit? What can I really achieve? Where's my personal PB in life? That's he sort of characters forged in Christ. I'm like, I'm gonna work this out.
When you said you're trying to prove, and then you said, oh, I want to prove to the sell side, like, why was it so important to you at the time? You said fear of failure, that's a big driver, but I feel like proving something, if fear of failure is kind of the root driver of proving to someone, was it you were trying to prove to the sell side? If that's really the case, why? And then, and my follow-up question is, or you say I was trying to prove the sell side, but how much of that was trying to maybe prove to yourself? Because I think we all suffer from imposter syndrome a little bit, but like,
I think it's definitely the latter.
Yeah.
I think the sell side comment invigorated I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
And it's like, this person, I don't even know who the sell side
that's
was.
It
doesn't really matter.
Like,
it was just, it created the manifestation.
Oz,
like,
yeah.
I'm going to prove to you. I'm going to prove to you what I can do. And that's probably like, I'm going to prove to myself I can do this. And I think that's what we all do. We set objectives in life. I'm going to prove to yourself of what you can do. Like, no different than being a parent. I'm going to prove to myself being a great parent. And this is my goals and my thing. So I think it was the same sort of thing there. Yeah. There was this moment on a conference call that I can still remember it. And I still remember that moment. I'm like, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you that I can work this out. And it was like, there were so many difficulties in that period of everyone's financial life and businesses. And this was mine. And it was like, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to work it out.
Did you have, I always go to this well in these conversations about, in my opinion, it's the biggest driver of why people don't get to where they want to is what I call victim mentality, feeling helpless, feeling that they're not in control. And this really gets to like agency, that they don't have agency, that nothing they do matters, because that's a very helpless and demoralizing feeling.
Yeah.
To have accepted this unique job and opportunity, but 2 weeks before Lehman and the crisis and the meltdown, were there moments where you found yourself slipping towards or actually in like victim, like, this is unfair, this is such bad timing, why is this happening to me? And if you did, how did you work yourself through that?
There's definitely moments you feel that in life. I do believe in agency. You can control it. I don't need to do the job. I could leave and go to pick another career, and probably not as easily back then. So I do think you have some agency, but there are so many external factors that influence business and performance. The thing you can control is, and I'm sure this is where a life partner, so Chantel's been the beacon of that, you just get up and keep going. Like, and there's days even now, there's days that are hard. There's days that you're like, oh, I don't want to do this. This is difficult. Just keep going. My advice to a younger me is just keep going. You'll get to the other side. When you're 20, I was 28 at the time, 29, you probably don't realize that, but it was just keep going. Just keep going. And you might take 2 steps forward, the next day 3 steps back, and the next day 2 steps forward. But I think my thing was you just got to keep grinding. Just keep going, keep fighting. Don't give up on it, and just persevere through it. So there's a resilience that you learn through that. I don't think you know that. Like, if someone told me that at 28, said just be resilient, you'll fight through it. You don't really know what resilience is until you actually have to put it to work.
Yeah, you're looking for more specific, practical. No, tell me a skill I need. And you're like, just be resilient. Like, no,
So my skill would be just keep getting up.
Yeah.
Just keep getting up. Yeah. Like, how different would that be than your USC football career? There's probably days you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's just turn up to practice.
Yeah, day 1 through the last.
Just turn up. Just keep going.
Just keep showing
Just keep
up.
going and just keep going. And, it's anything in life, there's adversity. Just keep going.
Yeah, we talk about, the concept of deep water, the blue of Matthews is, there's a, in the fight game, there's a reference like, oh, he's going to, like, in MMA, most fights are 3 rounds, but the championship rounds are 4 and 5, and they call it like deep water because like you're just exhausted. And they say, oh, like that guy's going to drag the other person out to deep water. And like eventually my understanding is like there's only so much time you can tread in deep water before eventually you just kind of give up and you accept. And I've found in having people like yourself, the privilege of interviewing them, that not all of them, but a lot of them are like, well, my skill is it's almost like I could just withstand suffering more than the next person.
Yeah.
And I just keep going. And you know, in a probably a cooler way to put it, it's like, you know, I can handle deep water differently or better than others. And you answered the question great. It was like,
I think it's just learn to, like, you have to, at some point in your life, you are going to come into adversity for sure. Just and keep moving. Yeah. The victim mentality I think you talk about is like you curl up in a ball and say, I'm going to wait for it to pass. Like, be around, and then go back to your earlier comment, be around people that act the same. Like the benefit at Macquarie, when I was at Macquarie, everyone kept turning up to work. I mean, Macquarie was like, you know, I mean, it was a great business, but they had all these investments. Like, just be around people, just get up, keep going.
One of the other 7 principles: avoid negative people. Because again, you want to be around inspiring people. People inspire you. They don't have to be Johnny positive all the time, but something about when times are tough and people are just sitting around being super negative, man. It's like energy vampires.
Yeah.
Right?
So open to yes is one. Be positive is my second one, and then be curious is my third.
I've always known you to be very, very
just
positive.
Just be positive. Yeah. Like, forget business. You just want to be around positive people.
Agreed.
Like, be positive.
Yeah.
It's never as bad as you think it is. It's probably never as great as you think it is too. Just be positive. Be positive in life.
Yeah, I say, and I'm not as good as I thought we were in 21, and we're not as bad as we thought we were in 23.
That's probably right. Yeah, just be positive. People like positive people. It's good for you.
So I want to get further in the career, but like you said, you kind of skip over this thing, and I think it's grounded in humility. I know this about you. Good student, you know, you went to a good college. It wasn't this.
I went to college.
You went to college.
Okay,
so
college.
Again, I'm not, no judgment. I only got to USC because of the football thing, but good student in college. Like
I was okay. Yeah, I did enough.
I don't know how much of this is humility, or you were like,
no.
Magna cum laude.
No. I was okay.
So
I was okay.
My question is, okay,
I was definitely not that.
You're a solid student, but again, you're not lighting the world on fire. You get this opportunity at Rubicon where you're jack of all trades, kind of utility guy, but you're learning. And then the way you tell a story, you're just like, oh, and then I was the CEO of this really big thing that everybody loved. I'm like, wait, how does that happen? How did you earn that opportunity? What is it that you think they saw in you? Because people listening are like, Luke, tell me how to get to the top. And you got to the top at a young age, but you, in the American equivalent, you weren't the valedictorian of Harvard Business School, right?
Yes, that was not me.
A polite way to put it. Me neither. So no judgment. I think this is why we get along. Like, we feel like we're both imposters. Like, look at all these smart people.
Yeah.
And then we'll kick their ass. But what happened there?
I think it was, so I said Rubicon was like an MBA for me. I got to learn from exceptionally bright people. I didn't probably value at the moment. I would say, I was talking to someone yesterday, in your 20s, if you think you earn X 100,000 a year, like pick a number, try to disproportionately allocate more of that in non-cash comp to learning. And so I wasn't earning a lot of money at Rubicon. I mean, it was fine, but I was learning wealth of experience.
And that was the compensation.
But at the time, I probably didn't value it the way I do now. So if I went back and spoke to 23, Luke, and my dad, this is where I think wisdom comes with age. It's really hard to be a wise 23-year-old. I think that's where Dad said, Coke will be great. You're going to learn a lot more here. Go and see if you can keep up. And then I got to... So the 5 years, and I'll tell you exactly, I can remember my interview at Macquarie, but I got to do all these things. I got to learn all this stuff. I got to learn everything matters. So writing prospectuses, marking up documents, the way I managed things, the way I raised money, like all these little things, they just polished me, probably sanded me first, then polished me, but really learned these great lessons that have now withstood for a long period in my life. But then I remember going and interviewing at Macquarie, and I remember them saying, after I got the job, I remember the person saying, look, the only reason we interviewed you is your resume said you did all these things with, like, there's no way a 28-year-old has done all this. Capital hedging, underwriting deals, raising money, doing book builds on IPOs. And by the way, I never did this on my own. I was around Gordon and the team working on long-short hedge funds, an M&A hedge fund. And I just, again, being around great people. And one of the other things I'd say, just like, remember, this is an in-office period of the world, which is you just got to be around the hoop.
Yeah.
You'd say, come to this meeting. You get to meet someone. Or you'd be in a car and you'd listen to a phone call and you then explain it. So I got lucky to be around someone, but I took the opportunity. Like, I had to work hard to keep it. I learned a lot. And I remember I remember even trying to explain capital hedging, which in Australia, when you're hedging the currency and the income, where you take capital hedging, you smooth it out over income to drive yield. And I remember drawing it on the board. And I think they're just like, oh, you actually know all these things. It's like, yeah, because I got to do it all. I got to do all these many hats. So a lot of people are like, well, that means go work for a small business. I would say it's more work for great people that give you the chance to learn and then be curious and learn. Like, the curious and learning is on you. I could put another person that's like, I'll just do what I'm told. They wouldn't have got the same out of Rubicon. I think I was curious. I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn a lot. And it's so interesting because at college, I did just what I had to do. You gave me the syllabus. I do enough to pass an exam, so I got a degree. That was the output. Give me a degree so I can go get a job. At Rubicon, it was more, I want to learn all these things that I'll apply. And what I have is now applied that over time. So it was tangible. Like, we're implementing a lot of these things over time.
And that's the resume spoke to them, but they almost like that. And then when they interviewed you or called Gordon's like, no, he really did these things.
They didn't call Gordon. I don't think Gordon would have been welcoming of me leaving.
Oh,
but yeah, they sort of interviewed me and we talked about it and this is what I've done. And then they're like, okay, you have done all these things. It's like working it's the person that sat around you in the first 5 years of Matthews probably learned disproportionately more, or had more opportunity to learn. I shouldn't say learned more, had a bigger opportunity than the next 10, because it just, as firms get bigger, you get laned, where I had no lane. The lane was the firm. I did everything. Yeah. I got to work on everything.
You touched on something. So it's still a very big topic, probably more so, maybe a little less so, than a year or two ago, but return to office. And if someone like me or you says, oh no, you should return to office. They're gonna be like, well, you say that because it's the benefits the company, which I don't want to speak for you, but I'm a huge believer in terms of benefit to the company, the people in the office, right? Regardless of industry. But what I've argued to people is like, yes, both can be true. It benefits the company, but if you're driven, you don't have to be young, but young man or woman, and you want to grow in a career and really you want to be the CEO, whatever you want to be, it's like, it's actually even more beneficial to you because of the personal and professional development, being around the driven people, the achievers, the Gordons, the CEOs, or the division leaders.
I agree with that.
And if you really are in your 20s saying, I want to work from home, I don't know if they're consciously aware of this. You're basically not just telling me, but you're almost like choosing for yourself long-term that it's just a job and that's all it's ever going to be. You really want to do, for whatever your motivations and drivers are in your career, if you ever really want to get to the top, achieve greatness within your profession, I really think you got to be at the office every day and around the people from a success level you want to get to that are already there.
I think it's an apprentice model. In life, we're an apprentice model. We learned how to be parents from our parents. We were around them. You learn how to be great leaders or educators or whatever it is by being around great people. I would just say, be around people. It's those little informal interactions that were really impactful to me, and being called into things. And it's hard to do. It's harder to do that when you're not around people all the time. So I think there's a balance there, but I agree. It's, if you choose not to, and it's also, people want to be included in a community. Like, Matthews is a community and Link is a community, and you want to be around the community and learn from the community and help each other. There's a whole benefit to all of this for sure. I totally agree.
Speaking of being around people, there's a line I heard recently, I put out the other day, like, entrepreneur, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur, you either need a supportive spouse or no spouse, right? And so speaking of Chantel, she had to support you all. I mean,
oh yeah,
she had to be supportive. And if she didn't know what she was signing up for, I'm sure she learned pretty quick. It's like, where are you? Like, when are you coming home? It's like, especially in your 20s, you're burning the candle at both ends. You're at the office, and I'm sure this wasn't every night, but 2 or 3 in the morning, and you guys are still married with kids. And so
we had the kids during all of this.
Yeah. Which is pretty wild. So, I know from my wife, Alana, that kind of falls on them in many respects. And so how, in your opinion, how important is it for someone who really, again, whatever their motivations are, whatever their drivers are, being competitive, fear of failure, being inspired to say, I want to be the CEO of some big company one day, I want to be a founder, to have the right spouse or no spouse, right?
Yeah, personally, I think you need a person, or it can be a collective, but like we just talked about adversity. There are times things don't work. I'm working late. I'm trying to get something done. It doesn't work. I think you need that post that you sort of are tethered to that's really important in life. So you find that person in your life that you can lean on when you need them. And honestly, you celebrate with when you have the win. Like, think about when things go really well, you want to go to that, whether it's your family or Chantel in my case, where you're like, I want to celebrate this with you because you're the person that matters most to me. But I think it's more like when things are hard, you need that person to be there to support you, to say, don't give up, get up and go again. It'll be fine. We'll get through this. Like that, those words of encouragement at those moments probably matter more than the celebration side. But I really think in life, and by the way, it doesn't even need to be a CEO. Like, think about anything. You have adversity in your life. You need, I think, having that person that you can be partnered with, or it could be some friends. It doesn't have to be a spouse, but I think it's really, really important to have, that in your life.
Well, she's got great judgment because when she met you in high school, you were not impressive.
I was not.
Buy low, sell high. Let's just hope she doesn't.
Let's hope she isn't selling yet.
My wife always says that because when she met me, I was like a failed athlete wearing sweats around campus, and I remember my wife and I were at dinner one of our first dates. She goes, "So, like, what are you going to do after college?" Like, I haven't given it thought. I was graduating in 3 months. I was like, I haven't given it thought.
Chantel is the more impressive version of our relationship. I've been very lucky in that sense.
Speaking of hard, all right, and adversity, you said your dad passed when you were 13?
No, 30.
30. Okay. Yeah. But even then, it sounds
like 2 weeks before I moved to the US.
Wow.
Yeah, we were moving. He died of cancer, but he was sick, but we just, he was like, you should do this, would be great. And then,
okay.
Unfortunately.
I was going to say, but that must have been, you're like, okay, your dad sounds like you're very close, influential in your life. Certainly a good decision maker.
Great decision maker.
No
Built
Coca-Cola.
a great business, great leader. Yeah, learned a lot from him.
No Coca-Cola. But how did you, how did you overcome that in the sense, like, I'm sure, especially losing your father, I'm kind of making an assumption here. It almost would be a time where you kind of fall back into your family. Certainly, to support your mom, and that's a real, but you said, I'm going.
It's interesting. Maybe it's like fate plays a lot of parts. If I was trying to make that decision a year later, maybe I wouldn't have said yes. Maybe I would have said, I don't want to leave. Like, we'd already made the decision. We'd committed to leave. And then, the one thing that happens when you move away from home, it's probably not wildly dissimilar when you move away. You sort of create your own family core. I think we were 4 at the time. We then had Callum, our youngest, 6 months into our journey in the US, and we became this little core 5. Not that we didn't love my family in Australia, and Chantel's a part of a bigger family, still incredibly important to us, but we sort of really locked in around ourselves. And my dad's legacy lives through me and through my kids and through my brother and sister and family and friends. Like, he influenced a lot of who I am and how I act. And, he was a great man, and, no different than, I know your dad's alive, but there's the wisdom he imparts on you doesn't need to be around you every day. You act away because of he and your mum, what they've created over a very long period. And then other people like Alana and your family sort of mold you. And I've just probably molded myself a little bit more around my family for the last 15 years. But it's never easy losing a parent, not particularly when he was only in his 60s. It's not a great time. And he only had 2 grandkids. I did remember the dividend of children. I remember saying the dividend of children is grandchildren. You work hard with your kids to get grandkids. So he got to live that for a little while.
Good. I tell my kids all the time, I say, I don't even want you guys. I just want the grandkids, and I got to go through you. No.
So he got that joy in his life. But, he left so many great memories and lessons that I still adhere. Sure. He built a great business, built a phenomenal business from the start. I remember going there on Saturdays to pick up stuff. And my brother and I would be like, we don't even have, do you have desk phones, but we'd call each other from offices when we were little kids. And I remember
we
all
still
of that.
have desk phones. This is like a week ago. And I was where was I? I was in Minnesota last week for some meeting, and I was in the car. Some young agent picks me up. He's only been here out of our Cleveland office. He picks me up. He's only been here like 9 months. So he's like sitting with me in the car, and I'm just like, walk me through your day. Like, how do you prospect? So you pick up the phone. He's like, well, I mean, I was like, well, yeah, but you pick up he's like, well, no, we don't pick up the phone. He's like, we dial through the computer, and I just goes to our headset. And I'm like, you know what? I remember. Okay, fine. And I was like, so how many? He's like, well, actually, most of the time I really just call from my cell phone. And he's like, so I was like, do you need your desk phone? He's like, no. And I'm sitting there like, why do we have all these desk phones? So I got to look into that.
Yeah, it's just anyway. So that's
expense savings.
Yeah, but I just remember that as
all
a
right.
good memory.
So you're Macquarie. You get a call from Dan. The September trip, beautiful weather to Cleveland. I mean, that's a big move.
It's a huge move.
And you said earlier, don't. I think it was don't be afraid to say yes.
Be open to yes.
Be open to yes. You were open to yes. But what was it? Like, I'm sure at some point you looked at Chantel, was like, I think we should do this. What was it? What was that magic thing that was driving
there
you?
was comfort. I'd been to DDR. DDR was our JV partner, so I knew the team really well. I think I'd credit a lot of it to Herb. She'd lived overseas, and she's like, we have 2 little kids. Like, we have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. Like, let's go do it for 3 years. Yeah, it's an
3
adventure.
years, see?
So I'm year 14 of 3.
Yeah, she's like,
but let's go do it for 3 years, and we'll see what we think. And I think the thing that got us, honestly, was one, we were sort of like leaning yes. Don't go explore things if you like. It's like, we're really open to it. We're leaning into yes. And we toured Cleveland and the suburbs and met people, and we're like, you know what? Well, we have little kids. Let's go try this for a bit.
Oh,
and then fell in love with the people. And
where'd you live in Cleveland?
We lived in Solon, which I called Salon for a long time. And then they eventually said, okay, we got to stop.
They're too nice to even correct you.
Yeah. Well, they thought it was funny. And then I moved to Hudson. So we lived in that southeast corridor.
Well, that was because you guys were out. The DDR was out in Beachwood.
Yeah, but that's exactly right. But it was such.
Amazing.
They're all the same sort of areas, and it was great. But it was more that sense. Like, I would say, I grew up probably, and this is where a life partner can change things for you. I probably would have lived in, if I'm honest, probably my same suburb I grew up. Like, I was kind of very happy to be comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Chantel was probably more in a gap year. She moved around a lot as a kid. She grew up in Melbourne, lived in Sydney, and she's in high school. So I'm going to go live in the UK and Ireland for a year. And in my head, I'm like, I could never do that. And she went and did that. So I think she was like, why not? Like, and that would be my advice. One, the world is small. You can always come home. Always come home. I've moved away from Sydney for 15 years. In 15 years, Sydney changes. It doesn't change that much. If you move back to California, it doesn't. Home is always there.
California's changed a little bit.
But it's still, there's still a lot of the main pieces are there. But
I love how you gaslit Chantel that it was her decision to come to the States.
No.
You really should be in sales. You should be in my role. Like,
I needed her encouragement a lot. And look, you both need to do it. But it was that moment, like, you'd go around, you're like, you know what? Let's give this a go. I remember touring and we looked and we're like, we'll give this a go.
And they said, and we have this football team, the Browns, like, this is our year.
We did not get sold the Browns at the time, but yes, we bought into the Browns. We moved to Chicago. I remember telling Max, who was 9, we're moving to Chicago. He's like, Dad, I just really don't like the Bears. I'm like, we don't need to like the Bears.
No.
I thought I'd become a Packers fan. Green and gold, small market, winning.
Yeah.
We are still
Browns fans.
Still brown and orange.
I'm telling you, one year will be the year, and we'll go to the Super Bowl. We got a whole crew, you know.
There's a lot of Browns
Snyder
people.
For sure. Snyder and Bates. And
there's a lot of Black Sun guys.
It would be so satisfying.
Yeah. When the Cavs are, the
Cavs are looking good this year.
Yeah.
But all right, so you're at DDR, you're CFO.
I went in as capital markets, head of capital markets,
and then eventually CFO, and that's where you got your really your biggest break of your career. You got a cold call from Kyle Matthews, right?
Correct. That's exactly it. And that's the most influential moment of my life. Yeah,
walk the audience through. So you get this call, you're like, who the hell is this guy? No. But that's where I met you.
Yeah, that's right. And so I joined DDR, and we're doing all these. We start doing deals with Blackstone. It was Nadeem was doing all these deals, and we were like the JV partner. So I got to work around Blackstone a lot, which was great. And DDR was great. Great people, great business, open air shopping center company. And we went through this period where we grew a lot. We did a lot of deals, like 4 or 5 billion of deals with Blackstone on our own. And eventually, Dan.
Power Center is our fairway.
Yeah.
Is that what I had the golf balls?
That's right. And then Dan was there. Then Dan left, and I became the CFO, and did that for a few years. And then Blackstone.
All right.
I got to know them, and
so we were sitting at a conference. I want to say it was open air. You could tell me the year. It might have been in Austin. I usually remember these things. I think we were in Austin, and you're like, hey, I want to talk to you about something like later tonight after dinners or whatever. And we were sitting in the lobby having a beer or something. And you're like, hey, I got offered this opportunity by Blackstone to, kind of launch and operate this retail platform. What do you think? And, at the time I was like, well, it sounds awesome and it sounds unique. And I don't know how you say no. I think knowing, and I know a lot of the Blackstone folks, and I mean this as a compliment, but knowing like they work, man, they work hard. And so that was like, just
be ready for that.
Be ready for that is what I said. And because you're building a business, not Blackstone, but like kind of launching that was the unique opportunity. Obviously you took it and created ShopCore and then LivCor to Link, but what was like the driver in that decision making? I mean, that again, you have this comfortable, nice gig that anybody would aspire to be the CEO of this REIT. What made you, kind of do something different?
I think it's the same reason I went to work at DDR, Dan and the team, and probably the same reason I went to Macquarie. I knew Nadine. I knew a number of other people. I got to meet a number of people. I'm like, these are sort of people I want to work around. I want to work around these people. I didn't know them. Like Bill Stein, I'd never met him before. I still remember the interview. I remember him sliding across the blank sheet of paper. And he's like, here's the org chart. And I'm like, okay. And like, there's nothing printed on this. I'm like, oh my God, he didn't print it. He's like, that's exactly it. It's a blank sheet. You get to build whatever you want. And I just, I got to meet John when he was running real estate there. And I'm just like, he is so impressive. He's beyond impressive. I was like, I just want to work around these people. And here was an opportunity to do that. And look, they do work. They're great people. They're great partners. They've been great partners for all the businesses I've been in. You speak to anyone that works at a Portco or even at Blackstone, they're just really great people to work around. And I'm just like, I want to work around these people. And there was that. And then there was the other part of like, I want to see if I can build a business, like be curious. Like the way we structured DDR was great. And the way these other, do we want to structure it the same way? Would we do things differently? And we got to go out and the benefit of doing it with Blackstone is they are trying to, they're very supportive. Like if you want to try that, let's go do that. Let's go build something that's very data centric, or build a new sales force, or build this. So we went out and built a business. There was, a lot of it's very similar, but there were some things that were a little bit more unique, which I felt that was something newer that we could have advanced the ball on. And it was just, that was probably the real motivation there.
Yeah, I found them to be just hardworking, impressive, but they're just so good at what they do.
They're so great. And they're very welcoming. Like they don't walk in a room saying, I know the answer. They're like, what do you think? Let's talk about it. Let's debate it. And the thing which I found, particularly with building Link, they want to say yes. Like if you come and say, hey, I want to build this, we need to build this tech infrastructure. They want to say yes to you. They're like, absolutely. Now let's just, and there's rigor, there's real rigor there, and they instill that in you. So they've been great.
What is, give me one takeaway from building ShopCore where you're like, that was what I thought it was. Like I thought it would be like this and it was. And then on the flip side, what is one thing where you're just like, I thought this was how we should do it or how it was going to be, but it was totally opposite, like a lesson, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that the positive, or the lesson learned was just surround yourself with great people. If you do that well, we talked about it before, if you have A players around you, things seem to just work out. Hire great people. I think that the harder thing was transforming. Not everyone fits that mold. Like not everyone's going to be the great person. And I think like that was a young leader in me. Like it's hard to make people decisions, I think, for anyone. So I probably didn't do that efficiently enough. But what I did find is if you have good people, great people around you, and you organize it and empower them. So a big Link focus is empowered execution. If we hire a great person, we empower you and we hold you accountable. but we empower you. So if you shirk away from accountability, we're probably, we're not the right firm for you. But if you're like, give me the ball, let me take the shot, we're the right firm. So empowered execution is something that I learned, that if you get great people, then empower them. Don't micromanage people. So we really have tried to embody that in all the firms I've been at.
You were at Shopcore, what, 4 years?
Yeah, four or 5
and then
years.
You went to LivCor. What was the driver, the reason there? Just size and scale?
Yeah, new asset class. Blackstone asked. Hard to say no to the owner. But they said...
It's kind of like, hey, you don't have to say yes, but if you don't, it's like, okay,
yeah.
This is awkward.
but it was like an opportunity. And they're like, we have this company that was really more asset gathering, and Ralph had built a great asset accumulation. And then they were starting to be more core and owning assets for longer. We want someone to come in and build the enterprise. So I went to LivCor. I was only there a short time. We built an enterprise there. And now it's morphed. I mean, when I left, it was 80,000 apartments. I think it's significantly larger now. So they've taken the ball and moved it even further. But it was really then organizing a firm, like organizational design, how you in a bigger firm, you can't have one person wearing many hats. You've got to sort of
deviate. Is apartments more widgetized?
It's a commodity, for sure, compared to retail. So if you think of retail, your neighbor matters. If I was selling you the space next to a Whole Foods, it's way different than selling you a space next to, a Bed Bath & Beyond, obviously. But in apartments, your neighbor, in theory, doesn't matter. So it's a commodity. The benefit of a commodity then is you can actually have a very data, deep, rich mentality where you collect resident behavior, resident role, like all this information at massive scale that can give you a competitive advantage to offer better services, build buildings in the right spot, buy buildings in the right spot. You can actually really do something at massive scale, and it's very leverageable. Shopping centers, it's hard to leverage that at massive scale. Like a shopping center,
every property, every space is so unique.
So unique, and there's an asset plan. And look, there is benefit of being bigger, but scale doesn't. Where apartments, if you love Nashville apartments and you have the money, own Nashville apartments and own a lot of them, and you lean in. But then you manage it at massive scale. So I learned managing with data and scale versus in retail it was a lot more granular asset level decision making.
And what about Link? Same story. Blackstone asked, or like, what was it? Just a bigger opportunity?
I think it was a similar thing. Blackstone again, and they said, look, and LivCor, I was not done there. Like I started things. And then at Link, it was just like they had assembled this huge set of businesses, and Nick was the president, and he came with Gramercy, but they'd merged 3 companies together, and they just said, we would love, you to come. You've shown us that you can build great organizations and step in. And my lesson there was that, building out a customer-centric organization. Brokers are incredibly important, but let's get to know the customer. Do we know Walmart and Amazon? Let's do that. And then build data. We are one of the richest sources of industrial data in the country now, just because we touch so much. Let's use that as a competitive advantage that we can then say to a customer, we see more, we know more, let us do more for you.
Yeah, you talk about what's going on in the world right now. It's April, late April, the trade wars and the economy and this dominating the headlines, and the amount of industrial space you're the landlords in, and ultimately what's going on the ground with the tenants. You have insights into the economy that.
And imagine if I could harness
above and beyond just real estate.
Yeah, imagine if I could say to our property manager, so we internalize property management, I went and said, go ask all our customers how they're feeling about the world right now. And did that regularly. You don't do that, but every time. But imagine having that feed and then having an owner like Blackstone that says, because having an owner that wants this and believes in it and says, I really will invest around the data capabilities and the warehouse and all that stuff you're doing, you really need the owner to believe in it, because it takes time. It takes 4 or 5. We've built Link in 5 years. It takes time and effort, and you have to wait for things to. And they've been a great patient partner as we've built this thing out. So, but those lessons are like, the data thing in apartments, which is well trodden. Go to Greystar; they know more about, resident behavior. We could do that. It's a commodity. And then the customer experience concept from Shopcore, I'm like, let's treat our customers better. We can really do a great job. So when JLL or Matthews brings a customer into a Link building, Link's going to look after you. They're going to be a good partner to you. and they're going to help you grow your business because that's our goal. Our goal is to grow the companies that are inside our businesses through real estate and other solutions so they lease more space, hopefully with us, but we really are sort of the engine of the US GDP flows through our buildings.
You had touched on in your 20s, amongst many motivations, like, kind of fear of failure and, fast forward 15, 20 years, like what's your primary driver today?
I wonder if it's changed that much. Now I think there's an element of you want to build resilient firms and people that go off and do great things, both hopefully at Link or elsewhere. Like I get a lot of pleasure watching colleagues or friends that have worked with and for me go off and do great things. I still don't think I've finished though. I still think Link, that we've accomplished a lot, but there's so much more we can do. Like there is so much more, whether it's inside our business to be better, with our customers to be better. There is a huge opportunity with inside our sector. And that would probably come to the third thing, which I mentioned, be open to yes, be positive, be curious. Like, why can't we reinvent what we do? Why do we do it the same way? I'm not saying the same way is not the right way, but let's be curious to be better at this. And I think a lot of the things we've done are different and unique. And because of our scale, we have an unfair advantage to do it. And we lean in on that. So once you get comfortable with that, you're like, oh, and once you start doing them and successfully, like, oh, there's more of these things I could start doing. So I think there's this huge opportunity as a platform and with our owner to do this over time. So I still think there's that opportunity to like, what's the art of the possible right now at Link?
So you said, be curious. And then, I was thinking about why are you why? Because you're sitting there saying, well, why are we doing like this? Or why can't we do this? Or why can't we reimagine or re-envision how this is done? And it's like the why are you whying? And you touched on success, and I use the football analogy, the end zone. How do you define the end zone for Luke Petherbridge? How do you define success so that when you get there, you'll say, okay, I satisfied what it was I was looking to achieve. Now, what I found is many times when you get there, you'll just reset the goalpost. But
I was going to say, I'm always at the 10-yard line.
I know. But
I never get in there.
At today, when you woke up today, what does success look like for you in Link? And when you get there, you can choose to say, you know what, I'm still on the 10-yard line, but how do you define success today? I don't want some abstract bullshit like, grow people and make the world a better place. I want like tangible success. Measurable, excuse me.
Immeasurable success. Obviously financial performance, we'll put that, let's say that is the resultant of this. Mm-hmm. I think it's when you sit with a customer, like a big user or a small user. We have a parks business, so the smallest entrepreneur to the largest retailers and users of space, and they say, we want to partner with Link. If our customers say, we're going to choose Link, because a warehouse is a commodity. Why would you we're going to choose Link? That would be success for the customer. And then the other part would be if you went to someone like, I want to work at Link. If you get those two things to happen, whether you are working at Link saying, I love Link, or I want to work at Link, and a customer saying, I want to be in your building, that's success. That's what success at Link looks like. And then financial results and all the other things come out of that, and growing the firm and buying more real estate. But if you can get to the point where customers are choosing your product over another, that is success.
We talk about success, and you answered the question. We talk about success professionally. I want to pivot this to CoreGiving. Success in a different realm. Yeah. What was the catalyst for that? I mean, it started with March Madness emails from you. Yeah. Right. Hey, you need to give money to this bracket. I lost every year. I don't even think I filled it out. But
yeah. Well, I autofill.
Yeah. But then it just, now I chat GPT, like, can you fill out this bracket for me?
Oh, that's a good answer.
Pretty good.
Thank you.
But what was the driver for that? And why did you do that? And then, what's the success? How do you measure success there?
Yeah, I mean, that one's easy. Feed people. Like that, and that'll be you'll never be in the end zone there. It's just feed people. When we started ShopCore, and look, firms all do time. By the way, Matthews, on your website, you say it too. Everyone does. I think it's our corporate responsibility to leave communities
I think that's
better.
What we define it as, corporate responsibility.
Yeah, to leave communities better than the way we found them. We all try to do it. It's noble and we should do it. And I think corporates and individuals, we should all do that. When you have success, let's look after these communities that are part of your community. And so when I got to ShopCore, I and some others sat there and said, instead of being And DDR did a lot of things with United Way. And like, why don't we find one cause that we can rally behind as a firm and try to make a difference? And, so then you start with, what was the cause we picked? Like, did you know 1 in 5 children don't know where their next meal's coming from in the United States? So put yourself back, and this is probably what I put in my email to you when I so nicely solicited for you to help me. It was, imagine the Friday before a long weekend, Memorial Day or whatever. You'd be super excited to have 3 days off. I know I was. 1 in 5 children aren't, because their school lunch goes away. And that is something that they, like, in nutrition will then lead to learning, which leads to socioeconomic output and then economic output. Like, there's this flywheel. And if you read Feeding America, like it's everywhere, whether it's the nicest suburb of Nashville to other areas that don't have the economic output, it's in every market. There's food pantries everywhere. And these people are productive people. They're working. It's just they need a hand. So we said, you know what we're going to do? We own grocery-anchored shopping centers. We're all around the country. We're going to start raising money for one cause. And we did it, and we went to our partners, brokers, friends of the firm, friends individually. And then LivCor started to do it, and Link started to do it. And today we now have like 14 or 15 Blackstone portcos that are part of CoreGiving. We raise many millions every year. We have CoreGiving Day, where thousands of people now globally go out and work in food pantries all across the country. But it all stems from, we own real estate, we employ people locally, and our real estate serves local communities. How can we help local communities? And so CoreGiving really was this way for us to, in an organized manner, give back. And I never imagined it being, there's been so many hands in this. I'm just one of the many of this, but it's really remarkable. And there's the number of people I interview for roles, they're like, I love CoreGiving. I love that you mentioned it, by the way. I'm really proud of it. There's so many people that are proud of what we've done with this thing. And Bridget, who runs it now, is taking it to another level. And there's many, like, all these CEOs are involved in it. So it's been really rewarding personally. And go work at a food pantry and you'll be like, I want to do this more. How do I help?
You have so much more gratitude.
Absolutely.
So much of what we have, and I could sit here and talk about my kids and your kids and how, like, perspective, they probably don't have it. And that's one way we try and give our kids perspective, is like, let me take you here and show you. And they get it, it helps, but then they go back to their world. But it really does remind you of so many things that you and I and our children and Americans in general, if I may, we view, even though we don't like to think of it as entitlements, are really blessings.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Something
blessings.
as simple as a meal. It's like, well, yeah, I'm entitled to a meal. It's like, well, not really, because 1 in 5 people do not have that entitlement, literally, by definition. And a meal to them is a blessing.
And then imagine if you don't eat and you're worried about food. Yeah. Can you learn at school properly if you're worried about my meal? Like, it's a problem. Like, there is no end zone. Unfortunately, like, we're on the 1 yard line and we're driving down the field.
Yeah, and the field just
but it's just, and the field moves away from it. But we're making a real effort, and there's just more and more people that get, and by the way, there's so many firms do so many great things that are different. This was just our one. Was yours, and it's really rallying around one thing. That was the genesis. It could have been anything. This was the one a number of people at ShopCore lent in on, and
no, I remember when it started. I remember the first year, like, I remember the emails, but like, and it was like this cute little thing you were doing. And I know it's gotten very big.
I think the first year we raised like 50 grand, which paid for 250,000 meals. Last year, I think we funded almost 25 million
I cut you a check
meals.
for 50 grand that first year, right? And you said, Kyle, we've raised like 15 million, and you got to get bigger. I know, I know what you're making to a degree.
And the thing I would say, which I've been, like, you talk about blessing, it's like people like you and other partners of our firms, from lawyers to brokers to customers to vendors, like the number of people and employees, like colleagues at my firm or other firms, it's been, that's what keeps it going. It's not me. It's not my email to you. It's all these people that are saying, we want to give back, and we're gonna sort of call and email people and give our time and effort. And CoreGiving Day is one of my favorite days of the year. It's like, and I work with other Portco people and all around the country, and it's really great. It's been very fulfilling. It's one of those things that give you great fulfillment.
Well, this is something, in my humble opinion, you've done with your life that is awesome, and you wouldn't change a thing. just kind of pivoting back because, we're kind of getting to the end here. Looking back in your career where you've had so much success, and I know you and I have known each other a long time. I know that you define success even from a mountaintop so much higher than where you are today. Most people look at where you are and what you've done as like, are you kidding me? I know how driven you are, but what is something looking back in a professional sense you would do differently? It's not starting CoreGiving is what I'm saying. That was great. But like you've done so well, but I gotta assume there's something looking back, you're like, you know what, I would do this differently that maybe the audience could learn from.
I think there's not an individual because everything, like I'd say, I wish I didn't have the GFC. I wish I didn't do the GFC, but I learned from that.
I was going to say, I think that's one of the best.
Yeah.
That created windows for your and I's generation.
Totally. I think if I could look at it again, so then it's like, what would I say to my 21-year-old self?
That's actually the question I wrote down. Like, what would you say to your, but I reframed it. But yes, I had 22,
I think every difficulty is a great learning opportunity. Embrace that. Like, I don't think I think I learned from it. I don't think I embraced it. I probably was unhappy about the difficulty but if you sort of walk in saying, this is a difficult, like you just mentioned it, imagine the difficult situation, like you're in, go in and say, I'm going to learn more. I'm going to learn so much in the next 2 years because the world's hard. I'm going to actually lean in even more. I probably could have had a better mindset during that versus I'm just going to grind through it, but I'd lean in a little bit more of that. And then I think, something took a long time in my life, like just be self-aware, like just always calibrate yourself and say, and I was never a person that said, I'm going to do New Year's resolutions and write them out. But there's probably a point it could be your birthday, just say, here's what I've achieved in the last year. Here's what I'd like to do. I want to read more. Then go do it. Otherwise you find you go for a decade and you're like, oh, I wish I tweaked this.
Yeah.
I didn't do that.
Things can get away from you.
And it's just because life is fast and it's hard and you're trying to, if you go back to, I'm just trying to move forward. I'm just trying to get this thing done. Then I'll get that thing done. It's always good just to sort of calibrate where you are and where you want to be. And you could be like, I'm exactly where I want to be.
Using the football analogy, imagine, a football season and let's say 10 years is 10 games, but imagine them playing 10 games sequentially in a row on the same day, putting aside the physical pain of it with no quarters and no halftimes.
Yeah.
Like where you never stop. Because one of the best things I loved about football was you go in at halftime, there's a stop in the game. And first of all, you drink your water, you're getting rehydrated, but you sit and you're like, okay, what's working? What's not working? What are we seeing out there? What would we do differently? What happened on this play? It's actually a great lesson for business. You kind of have these moments to stop and recalibrate.
You also have a room. Like you have a coach, say that's a partner, or you have friends. Yes. Like you constantly calibrate. I probably could have done a little bit more of that. And I
played like 10 straight games in a row.
But imagine so let's use my Coca-Cola Rubicon. My dad was the counter. Like, it's like, imagine in the hardest times, there was someone that said, you're going to learn it. Or it was Bob Joss, who was on my board, said, character is forged in crisis. You're going to learn a lot. In the next 3 years, you're going to learn a decade's worth. And I remember sitting there going, okay, I'm going to drive through this a bit more. I think that would be the thing of like, surround yourself with great people that can give you advice and wisdom, because in your 20s, you probably don't have a lot of it. It's just hard because wisdom comes with experience. It's hard to get that.
One of the last questions I'll hit you with is you have 3 kids. We touched on Chantel and her support, but is part of looking back, recalibrating, do you feel like, man, maybe earlier on, I wish I had more work, as much as we kind of laugh about the work-life balance concept, is like, man, I really wish, or is that something that came later? I remember a conversation you and I had 4 or 5 years ago, right around COVID. You said, one of the blessings was it kind of forced me home, and now I'm in this routine, like take them to school and all that. And I've talked to a lot of people. It's like, Kyle, I'd like to be a CEO, but I don't want to have to not see my kids, right? And I know you and I both have worked very hard, and there are probably periods of life where we didn't see them as much. But is that something that you would do differently?
I think so. Max is about to go to Auburn. Lucy is a junior. She's about to be a senior. I'm probably a little more sentimental at the moment because I'm like, oh my goodness, this has all happened. Like, I remember when you have kids, little kids, everyone says to you, it goes so fast. Chantel's phrase was, the days are long, the years are short, which is exactly right. It flies by. I sound like some old person, which I am, by the way. Of course, do you wish you could have more time with family? It's just, it evolves and morphs. And I was talking to another person recently who's like, your relationship's different. But Do I wish I had more? Of course, you want to do that. But here's a tangible thing when you're 23: get the red eye home. Get the red eye home. Don't wait the next morning. Minutes matter. And we've all caught red eye. Be home in the morning, even if it's 15 minutes where they have breakfast and you drive them to school.
Yeah.
If I believe that matters to them over their lifetime, like over 20 years of driving or 15 years driving to school, it matters. I'll tell you what, it matters to me. The discussions I get to have with Callum every morning, or when I was taking Max and Lucy to school, driving them down to Hudson from Solon every day, like they're memories that I remember. I'm sure that, and just get that red eye home, have one less dinner if you don't need it, like just get home. And I think that would be a tactical thing that I wish I said to myself at 25. Like over the next 15 years, this is all going to whiz by. Just get home. And then in my 30s and early 40s, I got home. And then COVID was the big adjustment. Like,
that was a big one.
Oh my goodness, look at all this thing. Like, do you need to be in the office at 8 o'clock on a Friday? Probably not. Get home and cook a grill.
No, same with me. COVID reset, and also technology.
I think that's a huge difference.
Like, it could be so. I mean, my work is almost just my phone at this point.
Exactly. I mean, I had a BlackBerry. Like, you didn't have access. So it's
you have the BlackBerry on the hip. I had that.
I didn't have it on my hip.
Oh, I had it on my hip.
The blinking.
It was like, dude. It was like I was like a gunslinger.
Yeah.
Like, whoosh, you know, click, click, click.
But it's sort of like, I think that is, and then if you're always recalibrating every year where you want to be, you would pick that up and say, I want to be home more. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to. I only go away 2 nights a week. Like I don't do a 3-night trip. And you try to, and look, it's easier when you get older, you can control it. But I'm telling you, if you look back at any 30-year-old that travels for work, I'm willing to bet you could find 20 nights away. That do you really need to stay that extra night? Just get the red eye home.
Or you take the Blackstone jet, just say, so you don't have to wait for a commercial. All right. So you've grown up in business, you've led teams and then divisions and then companies, and kind of ostensibly founding a company in Shopcore and running a big existing company. What is one consistent theme you've seen in people, whether it was people ahead of you, like Gordon or whatever, or people that you hired 5 years ago and from a career sense are behind you, but they're just flying up the ranks, so to speak? What is one consistent characteristic or trait that you've seen that on average, everybody who's doing very well has?
I think they're curious and accountable. I'll give you 2. They're curious in the sense they want to innovate and push and try things, but they're accountable. Like they want to be empowered. Like great people say, just give me the ball. Like think of a great football player, a great basketball player. Like I want to take the shot. Give me the ball.
And so they naturally afraid of missing, right?
Beg pardon?
They're not afraid.
They're not afraid of missing, but they like be curious. They want to learn and test themselves and the firm and what we do. And they're like, hold me accountable. And if you get those 2 things, then it marries up with my empowered execution. Empower them.
You can't say not curious and not accountable, but what is a consistent theme or trait in people who don't get where they want to go, who haven't achieved success in your organizations? And if they sat down and said, Luke, why did I not get this promotion? Why did I not earn this opportunity? What has been the consistent reason why?
They've just been comfortable.
Yeah.
Like it's probably they've just been comfortable. They're like, I'm comfortable. But I would then say to them, but being comfortable, there's all these other benefits you've got. Like you've had all these other things. You weren't reading, Harvard Business Review on a Saturday morning. You were in the yard doing so, whatever.
Yeah,
like
on a walk in the park. Yeah.
There's benefits to both.
Yeah.
Like I don't think there's one. It's just a trade-off. That's all it is. You get something for something and you give up something to have something else. That's all. It's just trading off pieces of life. And but I think people just are comfortable, and that's great. I'm not against it, but the people that by the way, I'd say if you look at all the people that you've interviewed, they would be curious on what can I do to hold myself and test myself in that, and they're definitely accountable. Like you're accountable. You're accountable to yourself, to people that work for you, to your family, to you're the shareholder, but you're accountable. Like you hold yourself to account, and you hold yourself to a high bar. And if you hold yourself to I believe you set the highest bar for yourself. No one else will do that for you. Hold yourself to whatever level you want to be accountable
I generally
to.
never try and compliment you or give you any credit whatsoever, but I use your line all the time.
I do appreciate that.
I use your line all the time, and I have publicly credited you for this. I said, one of my good friends, Luke Petherbridge, said a line, it stuck with me. And it was,
wow.
The culture of a company is the shadow of the CEO.
Yep, shadow of a leader.
Shadow leader.
Yeah. So you're, by the way, the culture of
now, if you took that from someone else, you got to let me know, because I've been giving you credit all these years.
I'm trying to think where
I think about it all the time. I think about it, and I said, okay, what is Matthews known for? And whatever adjectives people use, good or bad, I say, well, that, whether I like it or not, I have to accept that it is a reflection of me. And if it's something that I like, that's good. I'm glad that Matthew's guy's real hardworking, it's okay. That's good. If that means that somehow, some way I come across, or if they're this or that, it's like, oof, I got to work on that. And I think about that all the time. And I don't know where you got that line or that theory from, but it's very effective. And so,
but I think it's like they all know. It's everything matters. The way you show up, the way you do things, that's the culture. That's what people, and I would look at it the way you don't say it, just do it. And that creates the culture. And culture is the shadow of a leader. I absolutely believe that. And so carry yourself the way you want your culture to be. And you hold yourself to your own cultural standards. And that's sort of works.
So Link's filled with a bunch of nice guys with a cool accent,
Yes, exactly. No, we don't want too many. I want my accent to stand out.
That would water your value, your value proposition.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm being very lucky to work with great people.
All right, give the last question. Give the audience a resource, somewhere they could look to learn, educate themselves. Maybe something that's helped you in your career. Could be a book, could be a class, something that has made a difference for you. Something, some sort of self-improvement professionally, personally, that has made an impact on you and that they could look into.
Yeah. There's great biographies, whether it's Shoe Dog, I think teaches you humility.
Shoe Dog's great.
I think it shows, they move their own office, like they're growing and they move their own office. Good to Great is a great book. It's like, find great people, let great people do great things has been a philosophy of mine. I've sort of really read that. And then I think just read. Like, it doesn't matter what you read, you just absorb. Like, even CNBC every day, read that, or read the Wall Street Journal.
Mm-hmm.
And this probably goes back to I'm not a structured learner. I just you just absorb things. And I think inside firms take on, like, if they give you chances to learn, like, hey, we'd love you to do this development program with Korn Ferries. Like, yeah, let me do that, and then don't feel like it's a chore. Lean into it and say, I want to do a 360 and I want to do a DISC assessment and I want to do the Hogan assessment. And what does that tell me about myself? Like, lean in on those things, which I probably could have done a better job of throughout my life. But now I get to sit and watch this and watch people absorb career coaching.
Yeah.
It's like, lean into that. So they're the two books that really stood out to me, is like just way, and they probably spoke to me, like the humility of the way Bill Knight grew. Nike is kind of incredible.
Yeah, it's a great book. Shoot, I just gave it to my 14-year-old. So
it's a great book.
I gave him a book. I said, top to bottom, left to right, group of words is a sentence. You should try reading. Here you go. Because like nowadays they just want to watch videos.
Yeah.
Oh, I love reading. I love reading. Well, all right. Success achieved at Link one day. What are you going to be doing 15, 20 years from now?
It's a long way. I don't write. I don't do planning.
We've always talked about you being my analyst, and that opportunity still exists.
I need to work a little harder. It feels like, I don't know. It's when you have a view of like, be open to yes, like, who knows? Like, I'd go back 5 years ago, 10 years ago when we first met. Did I think I'd be working for one of the largest industrial real estate companies in the country? No. Even 5 years ago, I wouldn't have said that.
No, we talked about you were going to have some sort of exit, and then we were going to tour Australia. I'm still waiting for this. Like, we just need interest rates to come back down.
But it's, I don't know. Look, who knows? We'll see. I'm totally open. It's just, we'll let the word, but I've got a lot to do where I'm at.
We're going to Australia.
I look forward to it.
Drink some beer.
I look forward to it.
All right. I can't thank you enough for coming to town.
Thank you.
You inspire me to be a better version. I'm not going to let you beat me. However we measure success, I'm going to kick your Australian ass. We've competed at one thing. Do you remember what this is?
The tomahawk steak.
Okay. And guess what? I won for America. We bet
won for America. It was like nations.
Yes, it was Australia versus United States.
4 kilo steak.
A 4 kilo steak.
Oh,
we bet each other who could eat more steak at Mastro's in Scottsdale. And I kicked your ass.
I wasn't super willing to do it. I just like, sure.
Yeah, I baited him into it. It turns out I'll finally admit I hadn't eaten all day, so like I was prepping for this. But no,
it was great.
No, I've really enjoyed watching you and trying to,
No, likewise.
be alongside for as much of the journey.
Be around great people inspire you to do great things.
And congratulations on all your success thus far.
Thank you.
But I know you very well, and I know that you've set a very high bar, and you're working towards that. And so I'm excited to see when you get there, and you'll just reset the goalposts and celebrate the trip to Australia, because I'm really looking forward to this.
Look forward to it, mate.
All right, brother.
Cheers, pal.
Yeah, you
Thanks.
too.